Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today we are going to be making the George carry-all bag. This here is the handbag size. It does come in two sizes. There's also a travel bag size. Let me show you some of the features of this bag. So it has two magnetic snap closures in the front and the back. If you are doing the carry-all size, there is the option to omit this pocket and make a sleeve that you can slip over top of your suitcase. Which is amazing. I just love the shape of this bag. I mean, look at the zipper. It is amazing. This is domestic machine friendly. Of course, keeping in mind that all depends on what textiles you choose. The pattern was written for all cotton materials. I've done this one in all vinyl. I have an industrial machine, so it has no issues getting through those layers. If I was on a domestic machine or a heavy duty machine and you wanted to have the vinyls, what I would recommend is make the main part of your bag cottons and then these overlays in vinyl, and that would work good. I did modify this bag to be a binding finish because I used the vinyls. It was going to be really hard to turn in the way that it's written in the pattern. So this tutorial, I am showing you how to do that. Tara of Creations also has a video series on how to do this in the turning method. I will remember to put that down below in the description. So if you want to see that method, you can definitely do that. I added in, as per my usual, my decorative slip pocket or zipper pocket, and then I did overlay. I actually did the slip pocket the same as in the pattern, except for I added a vinyl overlay binding thing to my slip pocket like I always do. My vinyls here are from Galaxy Kustoms. This is the metallic limeade and the pink lemonade. All my hardware is from Emmaline bags. My zippers and zipper pulls are from Blue Cala. I used sew-in foam here. You can use Pelon Flex foam. You can use Biani Soft and Stable, any foam you like. I used the pretty and pink sew foam from Galaxy Kustoms. I have a piece of Peltex in the bottom for stabilizer, and all of my cotton pieces are backed with EBFuse Lite, which is a medium woven interfacing. You could also use SF101 or Woven Fuse or whatever your medium woven interfacing preferences are. Besides that, what else to say about this bag? I just so love making this bag. I also have a, we did this for the June 2022 sew along class. If you wanted a slowed down cut to finish type tutorial on how to do this, you can definitely become a member and you can see those past replays. I have that link down below in the description as well. And yes, how about we just get to making this bag?
Okay, so you're going to need some rivets, some number 5 zipper tape, 3 or 4 number 5 zipper pulls, 4 rectangular rings, 4 optional strap ends, 2 magnetic snaps, and if you're doing a crossbody strap, you'll need the crossbody materials. You're also going to need foam for the main stabilizer, a piece of Peltex for the bottom stabilizer, your 2 sets of mirrored overlays, and I have edge coated these as I'm doing the vinyl overlay version, your 2 exterior and 2 lining pocket pieces, your 2 exterior and 2 lining gusset pieces, or zipper panel pieces. They're gussets and zipper panels, your slip pocket piece, your interior zipper pocket lining pieces, your 2 bottom pieces, exterior and lining, your 2 exterior main panels and your 2 lining main panels, for connector pieces, you will need 6 of these if you're doing a crossbody strap. 4 handle anchors. These I have also edge coated. Now I'm doing a double-sided strap, so these are my 4 pieces I need to do double-sided straps. You're also going to need bias tape as I am modifying this pattern to be a binding finish. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my double-sided handles. If you need a class on how to make handles, I have those down below in the description. Okay, for your bottom piece, what we want to do is find the center of both the long sides and both the short sides. So I am folding it in half and just putting small clips, snips, to mark the long side centers and doing the same on the short sides. Now also, so I can center my Peltex piece on here nicely, I am matching up those little snips that we did and drawing lines across, and this is going to help us with perfect placement of our bottom stabilizer. So now take your bottom stabilizer piece, which I'm using Peltex in this instance, finding the centers of both the long sides and the short sides, just like we did with the exterior main panel. Then I'm going to connect those snips with lines just like we did on that bottom piece. And then to make this perfectly center, what you're going to do is you are going to line up those lines with the bottom piece and then go ahead and fuse this. Okay, so now you're going to take your two zipper panels, your main panel and your bottom panel, and back them with foam. Okay, now you can see my foam is really thick along here. So what I like to do is not cutting into my exterior piece. I'm just cutting my foam. And I'm kind of cutting it at a 45-degree angle to remove some of the bulk of that foam. We will definitely want this because we are doing a binding finish. So I will do this with all of my foam, all of my pieces I've attached foam, and you can see here how much that bulk that took away from that seam. So go ahead and do that with all of your exterior pieces. Okay, so now let's prep our exterior slip pocket pieces. So I'm taking my two lining pieces and I'm finding my top and bottom centers. Now from that top part, we are going to measure down centered 1 1/4 inches and place a dot, and that is where we are going to install our male side of our magnetic snap. So go ahead and do that as per instructions. I like to back mine with a little piece of Decavol Heavy and then some duct tape over that just to protect the prongs. I also put my nameplate on my front slip pocket piece on the exterior piece. So with that exterior piece, go ahead and find your centers as well. Match up the top centers right sides together with your lining pleat piece that we just put that magnetic snap on, and clip all along that top side. You will do the exact same thing with the other slip pocket piece. Okay, we're going to sew across here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pinking shears and just trim that seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch, and this is going to help turn this curvy part out nice and even. If you don't have pinking shears, you can go ahead and put small notches around that curve. Okay, now you're going to turn these two pieces wrong sides together, finger pressing that seam as tight as you can and as crisp. And I like to use clips to hold these in place until we do our top stitching. So take your time to make sure you get these seams all nice and perfect, because these are going to be a very focal point of our bags. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and top stitch along that seam with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. When I get to the curvy parts, you'll see me doing a lot of hand cranking, and what this enables me to do is get that curve really nice and even. I just feel I have a little bit more control over that stitching doing the hand cranking on those tight curves. And then once you're done that top stitching, you're going to go ahead and baste the other 3 raw edges together. You'll do the exact same thing with the other pocket piece. Okay, so now I'm going to take my main panel pieces that have the foam attached, and I'm going to find my top and bottom centers. And again, I just like to put little teeny tiny snips in it. Okay, and then we're going to take our pocket piece, and this is how I like to figure out where I am going to put my female end of the snap. There are also measurements in the pattern, but this is a trick that I do just to get it perfect. So I just put my snap on like this, push it really hard, and it leaves an indent in the vinyl, and then you can mark where that center will be. Once you've got that female part installed, go ahead and snap this into place. The magnetic snap is in place, and pin or clip around along the bottom here. And then you're going to go ahead and base down here, across the bottom, and up here for both front and back panels. Okay, so now we are going to take our overlays that we have edge coated. If you've edge coated those raw edges, I'm putting some double-sided tape outside of the top stitching seam allowance to hold these in place. And you are going to match up the shape or the curves of the overlay with the side of the bag and stick it down. I'm also going to just use some clips just in case my tape does not hold it in place. So again, if you're on a domestic machine, make sure you're keeping this tape outside of your seam allowance. And then you're going to take this to the machine, and we are going to top stitch and base this on with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, you're going to see me hand cranking a lot. That's because I like to get around these curves perfectly, and I feel I have a little more control when I hand crank on those tight curves. You will do the exact same thing with the other 3 overlays. Okay, so now we're going to prep our connectors. So I've drawn a center line at 1 inch down in the middle of all 4 of my connectors. You will have 6 if you're doing a crossbody strap. You're going to take the long sides, fold them into that center line, and top stitch down each side with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now to save thread, I like to chain stitch these so I don't have to cut my thread so many times. That's one side, and then the other side. Okay, so now I'm just going to take little pieces of double-sided tape. Again, keep these outside of the seam allowances. And then I'm going to take my rectangular rings and slip them on, and then fold the connectors wrong sides together and using the tape to hold them in place. And then from the bottom raw edge, I'm going to take my marking pen and measure up 1 inch and make a mark. Okay, on my pattern piece, I'm using this for my connector placement. So I've just cut along that top line there so I can use it to trace onto my main panels where the placement of my connectors are going to be. So I've put a little more double-sided tape on the back of these, and that 1 inch line that we drew, we're going to line that up with those lines that we just marked from the pattern piece. And then we're going to go and baste these on. So we're going to go just below that 1-inch line and make a small box. So you do not want to sew up past that 1-inch line that we drew, because that is going to be the placement of our strap anchors, and we do not want this stitching showing through to that. And you'll do the same with the other 3 connectors. Okay, so now I'm taking my strap connectors, and again, I have put some double-sided tape outside of the seam allowances, and I am just lining up and centering them on right along that 1-inch line we drew on those connectors, and then we're going to top stitch them in place. So I don't want that ugly back stitch look, so I'm holding my threads long, not back stitching, working my way around the connector. I also have my left side zipper foot on here just to make it so I can get nice and close to my hardware. Again, hand cranking around those tight curves. Okay, then when I get to about here, I'm making sure my needle's down. I'm going to pull on my starting bobbin thread to pull through my top thread, continuing on, and then making sure my needle ends in that exact same starting hole that that first stitch was. Pull my threads long, tug on that bobbin thread to pull up that ending top thread, which gives us a nice seamless line. Take those 4 threads, tie them in 3 or 4 knots to secure. And because I'm using a bonded thread, I like to just melt it a little bit just to make sure they don't come out. Go ahead and do that with all 4 connectors like I've done here. I've also gone ahead and put in some rivets for extra stability. I have already installed my slip pocket and my zipper pocket. You can find those classes down below in the description. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our lining panels and our exterior panels, and we are going to place them wrong sides together and clip them in place. I've made sure I've put my slip pocket on my front piece because that's where I like my lining slip pocket to be. And I'm going to go ahead and baste these in place. So I have my zipper pocket. I will be basting to my back panel. And of course my slip pocket is on my front panel here. Okay, so now that that's done, we are going to work on our zipper panel here. So you're going to take your lining pieces of your zipper panel, and it's right side up. You're going to put some double-sided tape along here. If your machine does not like double-sided tape, go ahead and use clips instead. Take your zipper, which is also right side up, and place it along that. I cut my zipper a little bit longer, and I will show you why in just a moment here. So I'm just going to put a little clip on the end here, so I can pull my zipper pulls out of the way like so they don't come off of my zipper tape, but they're also out of the way from my sewing. So I'm going to take my exterior side here, put some double-sided tape along the top. Again, use clips if your machine does not like the tape. And you're going to put this right sides together with that lining piece, sandwiching the zipper tape in between the lining and the exterior panels. And then we're going to sew across this with our right zipper foot on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once those are sewn together, you're going to want to have your press your pieces wrong sides together. Again, I am using double-sided tape because my machine can handle it and I like to do it. You can definitely finger press this, or if you've used all cloth materials, you can go ahead and iron everything in place. So I am pushing my lining piece nice and taut away from my zipper teeth. That was my exterior piece. I'm going to do the same with my lining piece, bringing them wrong sides together, making sure they are pressed nice and taut away from the zipper teeth. And then I'm also going to clip all of the 3 raw edges with clips, as we are going to top stitch along the zipper, and then we are going to baste the other 3 sides together. All right, so I'm going to start at the bottom, raw edge and backstitch, work across the bottom, up the raw short side, and then top stitch with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance across that zipper seam. Down the other short raw side and finish up the bottom. Then you're going to go ahead and do this exact same thing with the other 2 zipper panels and the other side of the zipper tape. Okay, so my panel is done here. I've pulled my pulls into the center so I can trim up my tail that I had here and any tail that I had on the other side. Now this is where you would put your crossbody connectors. I refer to the pattern if you are doing that. So I'm going to take my exterior bottom piece and my zipper panel, put them right sides together. So it's the 2 exterior pieces are right sides together. Then you're going to take your lining piece of your bottom panel and put it on the other side, right sides together with the lining side of our zipper panel. And we're going to sew across here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we have our zipper panel sandwiched between our exterior piece and our lining bottom pieces. Then you're going to press these wrong sides together like so. And then we're going to top stitch that seam in place through the bottom panel. That side is done. This other side is a little trickier, but not hard at all. So again, bring the exterior pieces right sides together and clip in place. And then bring the lining sides or right sides together and add it into the clips. So again, we have the zipper panel sandwiched between the lining and the exterior bottom panels. And we've kind of formed this figure 8 type loop, I guess. Go ahead and sew that seam with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and then you're going to fold this out, bring those panels wrong sides together to form a big loop, and then we are going to sew, top stitch that seam in place, kind of in a loop like so, right along that seam we have just sewn. And then once that's done, if you've done this all right, the lining should fit in perfectly here. We are going to take these raw edges and clip them together and baste them in place to form all one piece. So we'll start with one side. And then do the exact same thing on the other side, and then we have formed our finished gusset piece. All right, so we have this here. Now we want to find the centers of that top zipper panel. We already have our centers on the bottom. So I'm just matching up the two seams that we just sewn and then making small clips in the top center. Our bottom should be done. Okay, so here are our exterior or our main panels ready to go. I have already marked the centers at the top and bottom. You're going to turn your gusset piece inside out. You're going to match up the bottom center of both the main panel and the gusset piece right sides together like so. Secure the bottom with a few clips. And then you're going to do the same and match up that top center with the top center of our gusset. It's much easier if you leave your zipper open like I have done here. Makes it a little more flexible, especially when you're working with so many curvy edges as we are with this bag. Okay, now you're going to see it doesn't look like our bottom panel and our overlays match up, and that is exactly what we want. That is how the pattern was written to help reduce bulk in those seams, and it's a really beautiful decorative element of this when they are at different heights. So trust the design process, it is perfection. Now, my corners of my gusset didn't quite want to fit around that corner, so I just put a few snips around the corner, and you can see how that spreads the fabric out in such a way that you can evenly get that around that corner with no puckers. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with the other bottom corner. I have to use both hands on my scissors because I have terrible carpal tunnel right now, so do not laugh at me. Again, those snips help even out that fabric of the gusset piece all the way around that main panel. Again, you're only cutting the snips into the gusset. And they're like a scant 1/4 of an inch snip. Now, when you go to do these top corners, you may or may not have to put little snips in them. If you find it's not quite stretching around like I found, just go ahead and put some small snips into the gusset piece here so you can evenly distribute that fabric around those top curves. Okay, so once that is all done, we're going to take this to the machine and stitch all the way around with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now what you want to do is kind of push that seam out to make sure everything was caught, that everything looks good. I am going to go ahead and do my preferred binding method of bias tape binding. I do have a class down below on how to do this on a flatbed machine as well as a cylinder arm machine. So if you want an in-depth class on how I do my binding, please do check out those classes. I'm not going to go into great detail of what I am doing here as it's in those classes, but I have also kept it in this video so you can see the process. Bias tape is in place. I am going to go ahead and sew it on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Now that that's done, I'm going to fold my double folded tape over the other seam, and then I'm going to use the fold of that other side as my guide, putting my zipper foot right up against that fold to sew the rest of this in place, which is approximately just under 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once this side is done, you're going to construct the other side in the exact same fashion, attaching your other panel to the other side of the gusset and binding it. binding is done, you can go ahead and turn your bag right side out. Make sure you poke out all of the seams. Make sure they are pressed really well. If you are using a cotton fabric, you can definitely take this to your iron. I am just going to have to hand press these seams the best that I can because I've used all vinyl. But you can see how the binding helps give it that amazing shape and holds everything in place perfectly. Then all that's left to do after that is to attach your handles. And I will be riveting my handles on. And then we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. Isn't that a fun make? I mean, I just love the George. Yeah, it makes such an amazing travel set for sure. So if you did like this video, please give me a thumbs up if you haven't already. Please do subscribe if you haven't. And if you'd like to support my channel further, you could definitely buy me a coffee down below in the description. Again, all my information for my sew along class for this is down below and how you can join that as well. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.